Welcome to Paradigm Shift. I'm Charles Jacobs. Most of American Jewry is aware and concerned about the problem on American campuses, where Israel is singled out for harsh criticism and Jewish students are sometimes under enormous pressure. There are many sorts of problems: left-wing student groups lining up against Israel's Jewish supporters, massive donations by Arab and Muslim donors that influence what is being taught, administrators who are conflict averse and don't protect Jewish students. But one of the things we most often hear about is left-wing and Muslim professors who use their classrooms to indoctrinate students against the Jewish state. Today, we want to explore the role of Jewish professors. And I want to start with a classic view of their role, a very harsh and well-known criticism of them by Harvard professor and civil rights lawyer Alan Dershowitz.
The real villains of what's going on college campuses today are pro-Israel faculty members. Why? Because pro-Israel faculty members, with some striking exceptions, are a bunch of cowards who won't stand up for what they believe. Having taught at major American universities for 50 years, I have never met a less courageous group of people in general than tenured professors. They are so concerned about their student evaluations, about getting picked for honorific societies, about getting their honorary doctorates, about being popular, that they will not speak out. It's the pro-Israel faculty that has been so disappointing. Many exceptions. There are many exceptions, too few, but exceptions. But the vast majority of pro-Israel faculty are silent, whereas the vast majority of anti-Israel faculty are very vocal. So you get a disconnect on college campuses. You may actually have more pro-Israel than anti-Israel professors on any given campus. But the anti-Israel professors speak out, the pro-Israel professors hide.
So, given this view, who in his right mind, who in the world would want the Sisyphean task of motivating and educating pro-Israel professors to do what they should do? Well, my two guests. Dr. Asaf Romirowsky is Executive Director of SPME, Scholars for Peace in the Middle East, an organization dedicated to, if we take Alan Dershowitz's view, mission impossible, that is organizing and educating pro-Israel professors about the assault on Israel on campus. Full disclosure, I myself serve on the board of SPME. Asaf is also a fellow at the Middle East Forum, and he's an affiliate professor at the University of Haifa. Trained as a Middle East historian, he holds a PhD in Middle East and Mediterranean Studies from King's College, London, England, and has published widely on various aspects of the Israeli-Arab conflict and American foreign policy in the Middle East, as well as on Israel and Zionist history. Dr. Romirowsky is co-author with Alex Joffe, our other guest, of Religion, Politics, and the Origin of Palestine Refugee Relief. Our other guest, Alex Joffe, is editor of SPME's BDS Monitor, a monthly digest of all BDS activity around the world, and he conducts monthly conference calls with SPME members on the ongoing battles. Alex is an archaeologist and historian, educated at Cornell University and the University of Arizona. He is author of several books, most recently his book with Asaf Romirowsky. Alex was formerly director of research at the David Project and is now, in addition to his SPME work, a Shillman Ginsburg Fellow at the Middle East Forum. SPME has a membership of over 40,000 professors on campus. Welcome, Asaf and Alex. So let's start from the top. What, in your view, is the problem on American campuses?
Well, first of all, good to be here. Thank you for having us. The view and the problem is, as Professor Dershowitz, as Alan talks about, is really the fact that when you're looking at the larger population, individuals who support Israel are basically not willing to speak out. They are the silent majority. Israel today has become a litmus test for what it means to be a good, solid academic, a liberal academic, and academia by nature tends to lean left. And so individuals who want to be part of the rank and file of academia, depending on how critical to a point of questioning Israel's right to exist, is where they fall in this kind of larger rank and file of being a good academic. To that end, we're trying to mobilize those individuals to actually speak out against the disingenuous information that's being put out on campuses. What we are seeing, which is fascinating to, I would say, a common denominator to the majority of our membership, is individuals who've prided themselves on being individuals of the left, but have drawn a line when it comes to the boycott movement, are now being marginalized by their own peers. They're no longer seen as members of the left, including individuals like Alan Dershowitz, who is seen as a conservative now because of where they took on the Israel. So that's the kind of push and pull dynamic that you're seeing here now when people have been able or willing to speak out, not even to be an ardent Zionist, but to be sympathetic towards Israel.
So what is your given Dershowitz's view of things, and given the risks that Jewish professors fear to take action, so what is SPME's strategy?
It's funny that you had the quote on Dershowitz. About 3 or 4 years ago, we actually had a conference at the Baltimore Law School, and Alan Dershowitz was the keynote speaker of that event. And it was a follow-up to we've been doing over the past few years, law deans, missions, and professors of national security, taking them to Israel. As a follow-up, we did a conference on academic freedom at the Baltimore Law School. Both myself and Alex were speakers at the event. And Dershowitz made the same comment there and how unique it was to actually find individuals who are willing to speak out. So that was, again, we're talking about 40,000, who are in our membership. At the larger, with adjuncts and whatnot, you're looking at about 1 million faculty around, in general. So it's a small number, but people who are actually willing to do something. What we're looking to do, is really help them, make sure that they're not alone. I mean, that's the number one issue, to feel a sense of community and belonging. A lot of the content that we provide is an additional aspect to it, but on most campuses, you can find maybe 1, 2, or 3 people who are willing to speak out on these issues. And to that end, they feel like they're alone because they're going to be targeted by their own peers. So we provide a sense of community.
So you find the 2, 3, or 4 people who are willing to speak out, who didn't know each other perhaps, and who didn't know that there was a national organization that would come to support them.
Right.
And you organize them and you give them a feeling of safety, comfort, belonging.
Correct. I mean, we have what we call faculty chapters, and a faculty chapter is no more than 2 or 3 professors who are predominantly tenured, because that's a kind of a safety net for they won't be targeted by actually having, again, it's no guarantee, but at least when having tenure, at least job security. And so those individuals, and again, depending on what campus, differs from campus to campus, we turn to use their own position to articulate issues when it comes to dealing with the administration and helping build bridges between them and pro-Israel groups on campus.
So Alex, so what should we expect, and what can we expect Jewish professors to do in this context of anti-Israelism on campuses?
Well, it's important to emphasize, first of all, that it's not simply a question of Jewish professors on campus. It's professors in general, Jews and non-Jews, who are supportive of Israel in some ways. Having a series of expectations is difficult. The way I always put it is that our problems are set within larger problems of the American university. The American university is, to some extent, a microcosm of American society. Whether as a leading indicator or a trailing indicator, we can debate. But the fragmentation that we see in American society generally, the rise of identity politics, the partitioning into ethnic and racial, religious, sexual, gender kinds of groups, all of these are pioneered and I think to some extent, very much exemplified on campus. finding a unity in American society is very difficult, if not impossible, at the moment. And professors who support Israel, faculty who support Israel on campus, are very much at a disadvantage within the larger worldview, the larger approach. I think the first thing that has to be done is to, as Asaf said, to band together, to realize that you are not alone, and that SPME, and there are other organizations out there as well, to provide a sense of community and provide resources, and in some cases a kind of lifeline to faculty members who are in better and worse situations. Untenured faculty members are in very challenging situations because it simply is not fashionable, or worse than that, not simply unfashionable, it goes against the prevailing secular religion on campus very much to support Israel. This has to be challenged, and tenured faculty are the only ones in a social, legal position to do so, and even they suffer repercussions on a regular basis that we hear about. The second thing is to realize that there is, that what goes on campus is in some respects a microcosm of society, but it's not the prevailing opinion of society. Poll after poll demonstrates that American society across the board is supportive of Israel, its right to exist, its right to defend itself, is opposed to boycotting and other forms of attack against Israel. Anti-Semitism is not a problem that we're going to resolve anytime soon, certainly not in our lifetimes.
But we certainly have to put our foot down and to try to do something on the campuses, because that's where the future leaders of America come from. And Asaf, you've been at this you've been heading SPME for a little over 5 years. What have you been doing? Can you point to some accomplishments of the organization, something that gives you strength and hope? And
Sure. I mean, look, first of all, we've been able to get people more to speak out. I mean, I think that's number one. We've been able to help get faculty to help other allies on campus to stand up for what they believe. That's very positive. We've been doing a lot of work over the past few years within the academic associations. Much of the calls for boycott are now coming out of the own disciplines, and so we were very successful. One of the largest one was the American Studies Association that called their national call for boycott in 2012. And what was interesting about that is that we were a participant in the Mid-Atlantic Regional Conference of the ASA, and as a result of the panel we put on, that was put on by the then individual who was touted to be the next president of the American Studies Association, the Mid-Atlantic and California did not follow the national call for boycott. So you could see that, what you're seeing even within the architecture of these disciplines, academics, which I think is so disingenuous, that individuals like ourselves who've studied and learned about a certain area and whatnot, who've prided themselves on research and inquisitive research, are willing to accept, forget actual data, but simplistic polemics in order to make decisions. And so when you're able to provide alternative viewpoints, and I think what we did in that panel, we caused enough doubt, which all we were trying to do, before they were willing to condemn Israel in the way it was characterized as a black and white issue. That was very positive. Over the years, SPME has also been responsible for, we're the group that was able to put together 41 Nobel laureates who stood up to say that BDS is wrong. I mean, again, to counter individuals like Desmond Tutu and Alice Walker, who've been going around the country flaunting their Nobel laureate status and say we support boycott because of their own, as Alex mentioned, their own kind of identity politics that plays into the conversation. Here we're able to counter that. That statement itself has been used by our membership when their administration has been putting out other information, said, no, we have 41 Nobel laureates who say the opposite. That's been very positive. The other thing, which is also, I think, we take a lot of pride in, which of course cannot take away from actually seeing the architecture on the ground, is taking faculty to Israel. For the past 5 years, we took over 100 faculty, specifically out of the area of law, deans and professors of national security and international law, to go and see what's going on the ground.
Why did you pick those?
So in law, which is very important, the case study of the Israel-Palestinian dynamic always comes about as a result of the question of borders and character, especially when it came to the debate about the legality of the fence. And so to go and see in Israel what the fence is, that's not a border, it is a fence, to go and talk to the individual who testified in front of the Supreme Court, in front of jurists, and made the case why it's legal, why it prevents terrorism, and why the legality of this is important to safe and secure Israeli citizens, was a very important thing for professors to see. And it translated into their classrooms, directly translated by being able to say, now that we've seen this, can you provide us with actual data that we can incorporate in our syllabi? Again, if you want to talk about direct impact into the classroom, you could quantify around the country how many apartheid walls and the fanfare that you see. The hardest part to quantify is what goes on in a college classroom, because as Alex mentioned before, if you're tenured and you're running a classroom, he or she can say whatever they want without any kind of ramifications. And so to actually impact the discourse within a college classroom, that's monumental. And so we try that by providing alternative viewpoints in order to give the students the opportunity to have a fair understanding. Parents, grandparents are paying a lot of money for tuition. To receive a one-sided monolithic perspective, I think, is disingenuous, and it's problematic on many fronts. So all we're trying to do is create some kind of balance in a classroom. Let them come to their own conclusions, but let them hear both sides.
So your interventions on the campus that you mentioned are, you go to associations and you have an impact on how they vote. The Nobel laureate thing was quite impressive. Right. And taking 100
over 100
professors, teachers, yes, to Israel. Do you keep in touch with them when they come back? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, so that's actually part of that's the carrot that we provide. I mean, part of, when we started the show today, I was making a point that we've started to do symposiums in these law schools. And that happened with Alan Dershowitz. We used the professors who were there to go back into their law schools and say, host the event. The whole advantage of the idea is we're not trying to come in as an outside group. We're using our own faculty for them to sponsor the event. So the event is not coming from an outside group, but from the head of the political science department, international relations, wherever our members are located, in order to use their own positions on campus to provide a alternative viewpoint. We don't see ourselves as an advocacy group. What we're trying to influence is scholarship. And scholarship is critical. So professors need to hear critical scholarly work so they can justify what their research is about. So we bring in individuals who are subject matter experts with the idea of discussing this issue in a scholarly way. That's very critical for us, and on the element of peer-to-peer. So we can hear from other perspectives, but with the idea of creating balance. And so part of the content that we provide, which Alex edits and as well as writes a lot of it, is that we are using our imprimato as PhDs, as the idea of thinkers, individuals, to influence those issues. As you know, we also have many of our own board members are members of the Association of Israel Studies and other disciplines, and so we go and present on those conferences as well with the idea of, again, showcasing what is going on from a scholarly standpoint. That's really the bottom line.
So if I'm sitting home and I'm a professor at some school and I haven't heard of your group, but I'm pro-Israel, what would induce me to join up? What could you, what do you offer them?
We offer them the sense of community. That's number one. Actually, SPME, when it first began back in 2002, started by protesting the academic boycott that came out of the United Kingdom, out of the Palestinian academic and cultural boycott, PASABI, by condemning British universities. And so the idea that academics can come together and have a voice, that's number one. Number two is with the idea of strategizing, brainstorming, with the idea.
So if I called you up and I'm at home and I'm at the University of Indiana and I called you up, how would I call you up?
Well, first of all, we have a very large website, spme.org, and so everything is all there. You can contact us. All our information is there.
And I'm going to call you up and I'm going to say, this is what's happening on my campus, and you're going to help me think it through, maybe connect me with
other members. Right.
Come up with some kind of a strategy.
Exactly. Our membership is categorized by school. So we can connect you to other faculty in your geographical area, other faculty within your discipline potentially if you want to connect to those, in those areas. And the idea that every campus, we are very much aware of that, is culturally, politically different. And there's no cookie cutter model. So we know we have to deal with certain issues. And so we've also over the years have had to provide and we do pro bono legal advice when we have lawyers who deal, unfortunately, when it has come to extreme cases. Professors and faculty need legal advice, and so we also help provide that. In addition to content, many of the professors who are on campus today who have spoken out go to speak at the BDS votes when they come to campus. And so, but they may not necessarily come out of the field of the humanities or international relations or history, and so they need to have some talking points. We've been the ones providing those talking points to help them deal with their own campus environment.
And what about the BDS Monitor? How does that work?
It's a monthly digest. It's distributed via email to members. It also is republished a few days later in the Allgemeiner, so it reaches that many more people. It covers the globe to a certain extent. It tries to extract the major developments and the major themes in that particular month's developments in the BDS space, politically, culturally, and with a focus on the educational sphere, which is where we come from. Makes limited sorts of predictions about where it's going and the state of the problem.
And you hold a monthly conference call.
We do.
With people about the BDS?
We do. Sometimes it's me just speaking and giving a kind of roundup of all the some of the news and again the salient themes and developments. And we've also had guests to talk about their particular institutions and their particular perspectives. And it's been very successful, and it's another way to engage people directly. It's a webinar, so you can log in on your computer, you can call in on your phone, you can email questions, you can text questions, you can ask questions. And it's good to have an interactive relationship with people who are, again, out there in the community experiencing these things. And many of the questions are simply, this is going on at my place. It relates to something you said, or what do I do, and how can we proceed?
So we keep hearing about how difficult it is on campus, and you're presenting a story with some success, reaching out and organizing and educating the people that Alan Dershowitz said would be the most difficult to organize and educate. So going forward, just in a few minutes, what is it that you want to accomplish, let's say, for this year?
Look, I mean, what we're doing, we're trying to do what we can with the bandwidth we have. And I think that going forward, I mean, I think that the biggest challenge that we're seeing, what we're trying to be helpful, is help with younger faculty, junior faculty. I mean, Alex alluded to the point, the fact that if you're not tenured, then you're really not going to say much on these matters. And so part of the challenge is also helping younger faculty, which we've done over the years, go through the tenure process. also trying to get other younger people to go into these fields. Many of the people who are speaking out, who were of the generation of Alan Dershowitz, are now retired. And so there's also a question of the next generation who is going to be teaching these topics. I mean, I would like to, going forward, take more faculty to Israel. We do more symposiums on college campuses. One of the other things we've been doing over the past few years is doing traveling panels, where we take, where Alex and I have both been part of it, as well as other members in our organization, go to campuses and talk about different issues with the idea of bringing in other viewpoints that are not commonly heard on campus. And we use our chapters to come and host us. And so they bring us in, and we do an event with them, and we reach out to their community. We're there for like a few days. And so again, it's another way to give some face time, you know, that we're not only behind the scenes, but we're also going out and doing that and helping learn about their own problems and help them provide alternative views.
So you've been the head of this for 5.5 years.
Yes.
And you feel confident that you're making progress?
I feel confident that the problems are not going away. I
Right.
feel confident that we are making some impact on the situation, and I'm confident that more and more people are willing to speak out. And I think that's a factor of the environment of that they too are fed up by being shut down.
Right. Well, I think it's true that most American Jews who understand about the campuses worry about the professoriate, and it's a wonderful thing that now they have some kickback, some other thing that that can oppose the use of the classroom to propagandize against Israel and the students.
Agreed. I mean, our raison d'etre has always been that students come and go, professors stay forever. And so if you want to really impact and change the culture on campus, you got to deal with the permanent fixtures. That's faculty and administrators. And so we're trying to help them, you know, because they live and breathe on campus. They can be there 40, 50 years. And that's where we need to keep, you know, focusing the efforts to make a change.
Well, thank you, Asaf and Alex, for your work and for informing us about the nature of the campus scene. May you go from strength to strength. I think there are a couple of takeaways from this discussion. First of all, the problem on campus is more serious than most in the Jewish community have known. Second, that there are things we can and we must do to bolster our forces, things that can work, if enough effort and thought are put to the task. And finally, it's up to all of us to support the work of people and organizations like SPME, because we, the Jews of America, cannot afford to lose the ideological battle on the American campuses where future leaders of America are being educated. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Keep up your invaluable work. This is Charles Jacobs. I hope you will join me next time on Paradigm Shift.